Joining us now, another great guest. We've had great guests for this entire show. Former Marlins GM and also host of Nothing Personal with David Samson. Should we let our guest in?
Yes, the one and only David Samson is going to join us, or is joining us here on Press Row. Mr. Samson, warm welcome to the program. Great to see you.
I misspoke. It's president, not GM. Sorry.
No, that's okay. For the deals that worked, you can call me GM. For the deals that didn't work, I'm a not meddling president.
I apologize.
Oh, man.
But thank you for joining us, David. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot, man. We appreciate it a lot.
So let's get into it. Obviously, the Dodgers, the big story. People are mad. Some people are not mad. I've seen some of your opinions on it. What do you make of all the pop-up circumstance of the Kyle Tucker signing and the talk of a salary cap?
Well, those are two, to me, very different things. And I'll go back to the World Series this past October when everyone said it's the end of the world as we know it if the Dodgers win the World Series. And I never viewed it that way, and nor did the owners, nor did the commissioner. I don't believe that that was real. What is real is, and it gets disguised as we need a salary cap, or we need a salary floor, or we need better competitive balance, and more markets need hope before the season starts. That's all just words. What we're really talking about is the economics of the collective bargaining agreement and the change that has happened since the last collective bargaining agreement, which is based on what happened with local broadcast revenue. What the Dodgers have that other teams don't really has nothing to do with Kyle Tucker. It has to do with the fact that they have zero deduction in their expected local broadcast revenue. Their deal is exactly what they thought it would be. It's continued at that level. It's guaranteed by Comcast. There's no bankruptcies. There's no problems at all. And so for me, what has to be solved is that broadcast revenue issue. And that's going to be a huge part of the collective bargaining agreement because revenue sharing, that's in the CBA, the debt service rule, deferred comp, all of these things are in the CBA. And so that's going to be a really tough, long negotiation, way much more so than the salary cap or the salary floor. That's just good for talking on the radio.
David, I saw this firsthand in San Diego with the Padres losing what was then Bally Sports San Diego at the early part of 2023. I think the last game that they aired was the week of Memorial Day, ironically enough, in Miami against the Marlins. And then the games obviously moved to MLB.TV, Padres.TV, brought to you by UC San Diego Health. But now, of course, though, David, 9 other teams now have dropped FanDuel Sports with their TV provider. And you've long said, though, that maybe replacing an $80 million right fee with $4.5 million in streaming revenue is suicide. But if you were still perhaps running the Marlins today, how would you probably try to justify a payroll of $100+ million when your primary source of guaranteed income has now vanished away if you're one of these 9 teams who lost out with FanDuel Sports?
Yeah, I'll tell you right now, what bothers me the most is all the people who, there's this one thing on Twitter that I could spend 20 hours explaining to people how wrong this is. It's a chart of what they think the revenue is of each team, and then the payroll of a team, and what percentage of revenue is that team's payroll. The numbers are all wrong. The concept is all wrong. The reality is that when you have an expectation of revenue this year, next year, the year after that, you sign a 10-year deal for easy math for $1 billion, $100 million a year for 10 years. When that money becomes $15 million instead of 100, you can't replace that $85 million. There is no system, not through ticket sales, not through revenue sharing, not through a special commissioner's discretionary fund approved by the union, which gives teams an extra couple shekels. None of that replaces it. So you have to address the operation of your team. And the only way to do that is by lowering payroll. That's the reality of the situation that a lot of teams are in right now. And it's not going to change until the revenue situation with broadcasting gets solved. And right now it's not.
So the other thing that's frustrating, obviously being from New York and being a Yankee fan, but people are comparing this whole situation with the Dodgers to the Yankees being overspenders. I think these are two completely different situations. The deferment situation, which I'm curious your thoughts on. Does there need to be a rule on deferment? Should it be allowed? The Dodgers deferring over $1 billion. What is your thoughts on, I guess, the comparison of the big bad Yankees back in the day spending and also the deferment that the Dodgers are?
Well, let's talk about deferred comp first. There is a provision in the collective bargaining agreement. When you have deferred comp, you have to fund that deferred comp according to the rules of the CBA. But here's how teams get around that. Picture a balance sheet of a company. A balance sheet is literally a statement of your operation, like a snapshot at a particular moment. The day after a balance sheet is released, it's different. Literally, it changes every day. Deferred comp has to be set aside in a separate account. You have to show the union and you have to show the commissioner's office that you've got the money to pay all your deferred comp. But you only have to show it one day a year. So what owners do is they move money into an account, like they borrow money, put it into an account one day, take it right out of the account, and use the money for something else, either paying back debt or they use it for other things. So it's an interesting way where the Dodgers are not in violation of any rule at all. And in fact, they are, in theory, funding the deferred comp, wink, wink, by showing it in existence for a day a year. How do you change that? I personally don't like deferred comp because the players do. The reason the players do, it's a forced savings plan for players. What deferred comp means, think about it, is when you get paid to not work, that's the same thing as taking part of your current day paycheck and then putting it in your savings account and living off your savings when you're done working. That's what deferred comp is. So Shohei Ohtani will make $68 million a year for 10 years after he's done playing with the Dodgers. He won't be working for the Dodgers, but he'll have a salary of $68 million. That's the same as a forced savings plan. So I get why players are okay doing it, and I get why teams are okay doing it, because why worry about tomorrow when you can focus on today? But what the commissioner says, Bud Selig and then Rob Manfred, hey guys, tomorrow comes really fast. You can win the World Series and you're back to work the next day, tied for first and tied for last with a 0-0 record. When you defer comp, that's part of your payroll that particular year. So the Dodgers in 8 years will have a $68 million player who's on the injured list. He's out for the year. That's how you look at it. Ohtani will have 10 years where he will not play for the Dodgers, but be a $68 million cash item. No matter what team you are, that is a factor. And that's why most teams just won't do it.
David, your time, though, with the Marlins, people know you, too, from your time with Montreal as well and that franchise. And, we think about the 94 strike. We actually had an episode of one of our audio form podcasts talk about the 94 strike, how, again, Montreal was like, number one, probably going to maybe win the World Series that year. But maybe away, though, David, from Montreal, can you kind of talk about that 03 Marlins team? Obviously, people remember it, though, because, Steve Bartman ruined it for Chicago and this and that. But, that team, though, was so fun. I remember watching, obviously, as a fellow small market fan with the Padres and watching the Marlins in 03. Sorry, Nick, for what what the Marlins did to the Yanks. But, I mean, the Juan Pierres of the world, the Mike Lowells, Derek Lees, and the Pudge Rodriguez's. Can you maybe pull the curtain back, though, about how that team got assembled and went on that magical run, though, if you can?
Wow. I don't know if we have time, but let me go back to the most important thing that happened for that team was the ability to trade Preston Wilson and Charles Johnson to the Colorado Rockies. And Charles Johnson's agent was Scott Boras. Charles Johnson was a great catcher for the Marlins. Yes. He had a no trade clause and he wouldn't waive it. And Scott Boras charged us $1 million to waive the no trade clause. That's the only reason players want no trade clauses. It's such a joke when they say, oh, we like the school system or we want continuity of where our family is. I've spoken to players for 18 years. You're literally where you play for 81 games and for about 140 days, maybe. So it's not really all that relevant, but you get the $1 million. Charles Johnson and Preston Wilson get traded and we get a guy named Juan Pierre. And we wanted to put Juan Pierre at the top of the lineup with Luis Castillo because we thought that that would be pitching, speed, and defense would enable us to win games. And the second thing that happened that was important is that no one would sign Pudge. He was a free agent. He had no offers, none at all. And he's from Miami. He lives in Miami. And we came in and said, hey, we'll give you $10 million 1 year. Just come play. And it brought our payroll from 30 to 40. So we basically had him as 25% of our payroll, which is the maximum you can ever pay one player and think that you can win. And you need some great, pitchers who outperform their contracts. But getting Pudge, because the entire market said no to a long-term deal. That's the only reason he signed with us. So that was big. And the third thing that happened is that we got a throw-in in a deal with the Cubs when we trade with the Chicago Cubs. I love when GMs take credit for getting players. Well, I'll tell you the truth. Dontrelle Willis was a throw-in. We didn't know Dontrelle Willis would be good. He was there because we wanted it to be a third body. Like we wanted an extra name. And they said, hey, we got a lefty. Always love a lefty because then you can say, oh, everyone's looking for lefty starters. This is a great get. We always say he's got high ceiling. He's got great pitchability, great stuff. We're all full of it. We just wanted to be able to say that we got 3 for 1 or 4 for 2. And so Dontrelle Willis was a throw-in, and he turned into Dontrelle Willis, who was a critical player for us that year. And it's not because we were good. It's because we were lucky. So one more thing.
Okay.
Steve Bartman, give me a break. Alex Gonzalez, their Gold Glove shortstop, made a huge error on a tailor-made double play ball that would have been the end of it. It had nothing to do with Steve Bartman.
Yeah, thank you for exonerating him.
It's not even close. And in terms of the Yankees, I will tell you that, the big bad Yankees, the way that manifests itself is that George Steinbrenner, when we got to the Yankee Stadium for game 1 of the World Series, and it was we were taking BP. What George did is on the Jumbotron during our BP, they didn't play music. They were playing highlights of all the Yankee championships. They were doing nothing but trying to intimidate us. And we got to the clubhouse, and I will never forget this. Before game 1, we had Penny on the mound going against David Wells. I will never forget, we went into the clubhouse after, because when you're on the road, you have late BP, you go second, you then go into the clubhouse and you get a quick bite and you get ready to play. And we were like, can you believe what these guys are doing? They're so cocky. We're better than they are. And we were. It wasn't an upset in 03. After May 15th, we were the best team in baseball. And I know that they tried to intimidate us constantly. And under Jack McKeon's leadership, we just didn't allow it. And it got us a ring.
I have to thank Trader Jack for drafting Tony Gwynn, by the way, for the Padres in '82. And the parting shot, by the way, I think that 03 against San Francisco, I think, was Pudge saying, I've got the ball, when they threw out, I think, JT Snow to end the game and win the series. That's one of my favorite parting shots of that 03 season.
Well, just a quick story about that and little things that don't get a lot of attention. When you make up a playoff roster, you spend a lot of time. It doesn't just happen. You meet with the manager, you meet with your pitching coach, your hitting coach, GM, AGM, team president, owner, and you put together your playoff roster. And then you get given a copy of your opponent's playoff roster. When we got the San Francisco Giants playoff roster for the 03 division series, we noticed they were carrying too many pitchers. It's a 5-game series and they had an extra pitcher, and we didn't understand why. Was Jason Schmidt hurt? Did they not pay attention? They didn't have a pinch runner for JT Snow. They didn't have anyone on the roster. And so JT Snow was on second base. He shouldn't have been running. You have to have someone with speed in that position. And that's how he got thrown out. But anyway, just a little thing that in baseball doesn't get talked about, but the makeup of playoff rosters, that's a real thing.
Interesting. I want to go back to the RSN slightly because this has been a big topic of discussion, whether it's the localization of Major League Baseball, which has been a problem, but now we see the NBA going more national with their schedule 7 days a week. The NFL already does it. The NHL is trying to do it. How do we fix the issue with the RSNs? Is it eventually just going to go away and it's all going to become a digital model? I'm not a fan of the Netflix thing on opening day. I think that's a little odd. I don't know if most fans are going to find Yankees Giants on opening day, but how do we figure this situation out with the RSNs?
One, you got to make the regular season shorter. You got to go to 154. And I think with expansion, you're going to see that. Two, you have to do something during the regular season the way the NBA has and the NHL has with the in-season tournament and the four, what did they call it? The four nations face-off. 4 nations in NHL, which was amazing. Because what we're doing now, and we were the team that started it, we went to Fort Bragg. And I don't remember what year it was, but it was the first time they did a themed game. And it was awesome. And that has morphed into the Field of Dreams game. They did a game at that at the place where they race cars around. Oh my God, I'm
Bristol
totally
Motor Speedway. They've gone to the Little
Bristol
League,
Speedway.
Yeah, the Little League Classic 2 in Williamsport.
What are you doing there? You're creating inventory. And that's what baseball needs to do. They're creating specialized regular season inventory the way the NFL created the 9:30 slot by going international. You're creating slots and inventory that is sellable because these Netflix and the like, they don't want game, 94 between the Yankees and the Red Sox. It's not that interesting. But game 94 played in Iowa, that's interesting. So you're going to see more of that, shorter regular season, and you will see that national shared broadcast revenue will become a far bigger part of the MLB puzzle than it was prior.
David Samson, longtime former baseball executive, now the host of the Nothing Personal podcast with Meadowlark Media, joins us on Press Row. David, obviously, I want one more baseball question for you real quick. Obviously, my Padres are stuck in perpetual suspension with the Seidler family trying to sell the franchise. We've heard names of Joe LaCobe, Steve Ballmer has been two of the biggest names kind of thrown around. Joe Tsai, who owns the Nets and the Liberty, is also kind of maybe in the running. He also owns a pro lacrosse team in San Diego. I like to get your perspective, though, if you have been a part of a franchise being sold, what that kind of looks like, though, for the average sports fan, because obviously, locally here, we've seen 3 teams leave: the Rockets, the Clippers, and of course the Chargers, and that made me stop watching the NFL. But from probably your experience, though, if you've been a part of a sale, what does that actually look like, though, from the inside to the outside perspective?
Yeah, so I was a part of buying and selling the Expos and then buying and selling the Marlins. So I've done it twice, and you'd be shocked at how little the players actually care and the GM cares. They just want a budget. Whatever the payroll budget is, just tell me what the budget is, and we'll build the team according to that number. And the issue of relocation is slightly different. That creates a level of anxiety for employees who have their home base where the team is. For players who don't, it's not as big a deal. But for players and for staff and for GMs, relocation becomes a thing. San Diego is an interesting story. I love San Diego. You may know from Nothing Personal that I have a big problem with AJ Preller because he's a liar and a cheat. But that doesn't change the way I felt about Peter, the way I felt about the organization, the city. I love it. The problem is, in baseball, you can't pretend to be something you're not.
True.
And what the Padres have done, and they have, listen, I love the ballpark. I love the area. They're not the Dodgers. It's not the same market. You cannot operate pretending that you are, because what you end up doing is what AJ's done. Build down. And I'm the pro. I did that all the time. It doesn't work. Steady. And the Padres have not been steady. And that they've been steady in attendance, but I'm talking about in terms of payroll.
Everything else, though, has been a roller coaster.
And so what I think new ownership will require is a responsible level of steadiness, and will not have the syndrome that Peter had. And rest in peace. Peter had a syndrome. It was the I want to be LA syndrome. And that is, our owner had it. He wanted to be the Yankees. You can't be the Yankees. We were the Marlins. We were in Miami. It's a great city, but it's a small payroll, small revenue team. You can have a no shaving. You can have a no beard policy. You can trade with the Yankees all you want. It doesn't make you the Yankees. And so I think that is critical for the Padres.
All right, let's switch gears a little bit away from baseball. I want to talk about your comments on the WNBA, because we talk about the W all the time on here. You talked about how the league could possibly fold, the players being too greedy. What is the answer for the WNBA and the WNBPA? Because we talk about it a ton. We've prepped to do lockout shows before, and then, of course, they go on these 30-day extensions, and it was going to get to a point where they just can't do 30-day extensions anymore.
It got there.
Right. So what is the answer? Is one side wrong? Are both sides wrong? Is there a consensus? What is the situation with the two of them?
A mistake that unions make very, very often is they try to do too much over the course of one negotiation. What you're supposed to do in collective bargaining is have an idea. You're supposed to literally have a 1, 5, 10, and 20-year horizon. And what you're negotiating, think about what the WNBA is trying to do, the Players Association. They're trying to become the NBA in terms of getting a percentage of revenue, and they're trying to get it all now. It's just not going to happen. The NBA has far too many losses with the WNBA to give back any profits that it may be making now. They're using those profits to try to make the financials look better, to give them more access to capital, to try to pay off some of the debt that they have accrued over the years. And they're not going to give it all back to the players right now. It could happen over time. And what the WNBA Players Association did, in my opinion, is they went for too much too soon because they got seduced by the Caitlin Clark effect. And that's a really good PR effect, what happened with Caitlin Clark. All the numbers of people watching and the new TV deal that's a pegged number by Adam Silver as part of the bigger NBA deal. But the truth of the matter is that is a deal that won't get done until the Players Association comes to grips with the reality that they're not going to get what they want. Hard stop, not today. And and so your second question is, would it fold? There's a lot of businesses out there that have folded divisions than we even think about.
True.
And I'm sorry to tell you, the WNBA is simply a division of the NBA. That's all it is. And that's not to say it's not important. It's not to say it's not fun or exciting. It's just a division. And divisions close every day. So would the NBA close that division? Man, I would say no, but it's certainly not out of the question.
I just want to follow up. So like Unrivaled and Project B, like Kathy called them non-competitors originally. I remember on WNBA draft night, and Callan and I think that's preposterous, like in every way, shape, or form. Is that her just like covering up, knowing that they're a huge competition?
It's what we all do. When I was a team president, we lie to the media, we lie to our fans because we just we always assume they're stupid. It's why nothing personal is successful, frankly, because now I just tell the truth about everything and sort of let people see, under the kimono. But Unrivaled is an interesting thing that's happening. You've read that they had a huge first year. And full disclosure, I work with John Skipper, who's a part of Unrivaled. But second year, it hasn't been as good. And that's also normal. The excitement of year one, the newness of it. The question is, where will Unrivaled level off? And what will be the exit strategy for the Unrivaled investors? Will it be bought by Project B? Will it be bought by the WNBA or the NBA? Will it fold? Will it expand? Will it turn into 5-on-5 and become a regular women's professional league? That's what they're facing right now, is thinking about those things, because the excitement of year one is done. But make no mistake, it's a competitor of the WNBA for sure.
Just Kathy being in denial, as we've long said, Nick. Simple as that.
It's and I can't believe that she actually thinks that. Saying it is one thing publicly. When she closes her eyes and puts her head on the pillow, there's no way that she said to herself, "Oh, these guys aren't even competitors," because that would just be that's stupidity. And she's a lot of things, but I don't know that I would use stupid as an adjective.
Yeah. David, you had mentioned a little bit, though, about maybe baseball goes to back to 154. They look at maybe the Commissioner's Cup for an in-season tournament, for example, like the WNBA and the NBA already have with the, NBA Cup and this and that. But also, you mentioned that word expansion, because we've long been, led down this road about, Montreal maybe gets a team again. We've heard about Portland, Oregon. We've heard about Nashville, Tennessee. We've heard Charlotte. David, if you had to maybe forecast maybe 5-10 years down the road, and let's say that baseball does expand, what 2 markets would David Samson award a Major League Baseball expansion team to, and who will those be and why?
Do I need the vote? I need 23 votes to do it. Keep that in mind. But if I had a unilateral ability to do something, I'd put a 3rd team in the New York, New Jersey, Connecticut corridor.
Oh, okay. That's a wild card.
With Yankees, Mets, and Red Sox. And I would put a team out west to have another team in that time zone. I would try to see if Vancouver was possible. I don't like the idea of Toronto having all of Canada. So I'd like to get another team back in Canada if possible. But otherwise, one in the West and one in the East. And in the East, that's where I'd go. But that's not what's going to happen. But that's what I would like to happen. What I think will happen is that they'll go to 32 teams. It will be a team in the East, a team in the West. It won't be Montreal. They just don't have the money or an ownership group at all who is willing to step up and do what needs to be done. But expansion is going to happen because it is the math works for the current 30 owners. And that's why I think it'll happen.
So you mentioned Skipper. I listen to Sporting Class. I'm a daily or a weekly. I listen every week. Can you talk about that show? Because I love that show. I love the business aspect of the show.
Thank you.
Kind of talk about the camaraderie of you three, because I think it's a great show.
Yeah, it started off when John and I were just having business discussions when I was considering joining Meadowlark. When I was at CBS with Nothing Personal, and I took Nothing Personal to market, and Meadowlark was a bidder. And John and I would just he was the CEO of Meadowlark at that time. And I'd known John forever. I was a team president and he was the president of ESPN. And he was this very intimidating guy who I knew did not like baseball. He didn't like the Marlins. He only cared about the Yankees and Red Sox.
Oh, my goodness.
And, he was high maintenance whenever he came to a ballpark. It was a nightmare. And so he and I would have these conversations. And one day, Dan Lebitard said, "Why aren't we taping these?" That's how Sporting Class started. It started with just me and Skipper. It was just the two of us having a conversation. And then Dan said, "Well, let's try to get Pablo, see if he likes doing this." Pablo did a test Sporting Class and said, "Man, I listened to this show. So instead of taking the hour I take a week to listen, I'll just take the hour to host it." And that's how it got put together. And it's something that has a market. It's something that is wanted by, The Athletic loves it, and it's part of PTFO, but it also has its own market. And John and I love doing it. People love sort of seeing it's all real. So the best part about Sporting Class is that it's really as though there's somebody recording a conversation that John and I are having when the cameras aren't rolling. Because these are the things we talk about.
I just want to follow up one more because you brought up Levitard. I'm also a fan from that over the years. How did you were you friends with Dan? Is that how you became part of that universe, or?
No, I met him in the clubhouse 20 years ago.
Oh, wow.
And he just said he knew that I liked movies. He had heard that and said, "Would you ever be a guest?" He was on a terrestrial radio show. And I said, "Yeah, I'll come do a segment. I'll review a movie." And I became the only active team president to have a weekly radio show where I did nothing but review a movie, never talked baseball. And then I eventually started talking baseball and business. And I was just telling someone recently that one of the great pleasures of my life is the turnaround that I've had within the universe of Dan's show, where the people both on the air and off the air as part of his universe just didn't like me, but they didn't even know me. And I just got off the phone today. I was on the phone 40 minutes with Mike Ryan, who's a friend, a good friend, and Chris Cody and all of them. And I love that part of what I do because Nothing Personal is very lonely. I'm doing it alone. But every week I get to do a show with either Skipper or a show with Dan and the gang. And I just love that opportunity. It's fun.
Now, what about the character? Because I hear that's the big thing in that universe. I've heard you say it before, like you get mischaracterized. as the character because people think you're the I don't know how to say it, like the evil GM
The
or
face
president.
of corporate greed.
Yes.
Is what they like to do. When my daughter got sick, they stopped having me as that character. That's for sure. But I understand why it started as that character because Dan was trying to fit me into the universe. He was trying to make it so people would understand what I was doing. But now that we've been doing it for all these years, my character is just me. And for better or for worse, the vulnerabilities, the idiosyncrasies that I have, and it's just me. And I'm comfortable in that universe. I've always been comfortable being made fun of for who I am, for my size, for whatever it is. It's never bothered me at all. It made running a baseball team much easier that I didn't go crazy with what was said about me publicly, either good or bad. It really never impacted me. So, yeah, I started off as a character in the universe, and now it's just David Samson.
That's awesome. David, before we let you go, man, we'll let where can our viewers find the show? And more importantly, where can they find you on the web as well?
Thank you. DavidSamsonPodcast.com is my show website, and you can get all the shows there. We're on Nothing Personal with David Samson is a YouTube channel. Please subscribe. We're used to be every day, 7 to 9 a.m. Now I've been doing it Mondays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays since my daughter got sick. And I appreciate the audience so much. And we're on DraftKings Network. We're really everywhere. And we're on TikTok, whatever. We're everywhere. If you just Google Nothing Personal, you're going to find a way that you can enjoy engaging with it. And I love the audience. I respect their time. I'm thankful for their time. And that's what I do. And I love doing it.
Well, David, I'm a fan. I've watched both the shows, and I was ecstatic when you answered the message to come on because this is great. Just from a standpoint, I was always a Levitard fan. I was always a you fan when you'd be on the show. So
thank you.
This was great.
Hey, this is great. I'm thankful for the opportunity. I have not done a lot of guest appearances since September, and so this one just hit me right. You caught me at the exact right moment where I wanted the distraction for a half hour, and now I got to get back to it with her. But listen, thank you so much, and continued good luck.
All right, thanks, David. We
appreciate you, man.
Take care.